Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I didn't realise Stu had arrived last minute. Oh man, it's been a fucking nightmare tonight. Keen's laptop has died. Stu was having issues. He's asked me to come at last minute just to take over the reins for 10 minutes or so, but we're all here now.
Yes.
How are we all?
I'll tell you what it
Stu, go
is.
on, bro.
I'll tell you what it is. Some moron at BT cut our Wi-Fi box up at the top of our road about 3 weeks ago, and our Wi-Fi just hasn't been stable since. It's an absolute nightmare. So I don't know if you can hear me or not, or I'm coming through loud and clear. But I'm not happy.
You look wonderful and you sound perfect. How's that?
Well, I look okay because the girls are going on a sleepover after this. So me and the wife have got a bit of us time, so it should be quite entertaining.
There you go. In which case, bro, I have got to go, and I apologize.
Leave it with me, old friend. Thank you very much for starting.
But listen, no, you're more than welcome. You didn't even fucking need me in the end. But listen, Jonathan, Julio, great to see you. Stu, as always, thank you for stepping in, mate. Enjoy yourselves,
Pleasure.
and I will see you again very soon. Enjoy.
Cheers, guys. Welcome to Crikey, the Weekly Armchair. What a day! What a day. Julio, how are you, old friend?
Great.
Yeah, you look at Jonathan. You okay, mate?
Yeah, all good, Stu. All good, Stu. We thought Friday evening. Why wouldn't you be good?
Well, exactly. So Evan's already in the chat giving me grief. So long may that continue all night. Listen, guys. Keen was supposed to be hosting tonight, but unfortunately not able to. So he's asked me to. So the kind of essence of the show, we're going to talk a little bit about, as much about Bournemouth as we possibly can. I haven't really been able to do my research, so apologies about the tactical side of it. But look, let's delve straight into it. Let's look about the Newcastle result last night, what effect that could or could not have on the table. We've got Liverpool breathing down our heels. I think they've won 7 on the bounce now. And it's going to be difficult to stop their momentum. We have been, sporadic at best. We haven't played well, I don't think, for 6-7 weeks. And that's due to a multitude of things. But let's have a look. Let's have a look at our expectations, what we think Bournemouth can offer. We think that Rashford's unlikely to start, so we'll go through the starting 11, score predictions, and we'll go from there. So, Julio, I'm going to start with you, mate. I'm going to give you the enviable task of giving us your thoughts for tomorrow afternoon, 3:00 again, isn't it? Another 3:00 kickoff.
Yeah. Firstly, I think it's been a while since you and I have been on together, Stu. So it's good to be back on again with you.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think the key is obviously the away form. And it's why it was a very disheartened great for me when you asked how I was, because our away form all season has been really poor.
Yeah.
Which does not tell the whole story of the season, because our home form has been excellent. And I think I am worried for the next 3 games, because obviously it's a top 4 race. Like you said, Newcastle won yesterday. They're looking odds on to get top 4 sorted in the next week, next game.
One more. I think Friday. They play Friday, don't they? I think Friday night. I think if they play Friday night, then they win that game. Then that's it. They're in. They're done. Champions League football guaranteed.
Yeah, and then obviously we got Liverpool finishing the season very strongly, like they did 2 years ago when it looked like they weren't in the top 4 race again. And this is also going to be telling, I think, for next season, because Liverpool like to carry that momentum on. And, you know, like other teams, they're going to probably be up there challenging again next season, provided they get their recruitment right in the summer. So we have a game in hand on Liverpool. We're 1 point ahead of them. We have a job to do. It's simple as that. We've got games who, on paper, we could win in Bournemouth tomorrow, Chelsea in midweek, and then Fulham the last day of the season. Now, Bournemouth have had a resurrection in the second half of the season. Me and Jonathan were talking off air a bit about it, and that since they've had their takeover, they've spent a good bit of money in January, and that money's helped. And they've picked up good form in the right time when everyone else wasn't doing well. This talk of they've got nothing to play for, I think I don't think that's going to be there tomorrow. I think they'll see we didn't get our 40 points against Chelsea. We won that 40 points. United are in town. Let's finish the season strongly. Let's see if we can beat United, and it's when we've been in rough patches and played them before, we've pulled up with wins, but we've also come away with defeats against them in the past. So I think our record there, I think it's 5 games, 2 losses, 3 wins. I could be wrong. That's just off my memory. But, it's simple that we need to get the job done. And I do want to put this question out to you both, actually, because 3 games, in 2 weeks' time, we play City in the Derby Cup final.
Yes.
Do we go as strong as possible now whilst we can, see if we can get the job done after the Chelsea game? So Fulham at home last day of the season, we can rotate. Or with an eye on the cup final, or do we utilize it as much as possible, rotate maybe midweek or something? How would you, Stu, I'll ask you first this, but how would you go about approaching the lineup?
You've got to gamble. With 3 games to go and the FA Cup, you've got to gamble. You've got to go with a relatively settled team against City at the minute, because the way that City are playing and the way that we're playing, we're likely to be on the end of a cricket score, unfortunately, against Wembley, at Wembley, because the pitch is far bigger. It'll allow them to play their more natural game. It'll allow them to play with real rhythm, and they've got this rhythm at the moment where we're so fragmented, disjointed at the minute. It's going to be difficult for us to get that kind of early hold on the game, which we'll need. So when I look at what we should be doing tomorrow, we should be looking at our standard midfield 3 of Eriksen, Casemiro and Bruno as our kind of 10. If we get back to the way that we used to play, or the way that we were playing at the beginning of the season, when Casemiro really started to cement his place in the team, we played with a really fluid middle 3. So Eriksen would pop up as a 6, an 8 or a 10. Casemiro would pop up as a 6, an 8 or a 10. And so would Bruno. Just recently, with the loss of Martinez, with the loss of Varane, with the loss of Rashford, kind of with our team being broken up steadily, and loss of form, by the way, suspensions and things of this nature, we haven't got back to this fluidity that we crave. Now, looking at Gary O'Neill and looking at what he's done, or thinking about what he's done actually since he's taken over from Bournemouth, the biggest thing to do when you're on the wrong end of results is resilience. He's got them at a level of resilience which I haven't seen Bournemouth ever play at. And because he's an old school kind of footballer, he's not this newfangled generation of tippy-tappy FIFA 23 or 24, whatever it is at the moment. He doesn't give a damn about that. He cares about winning games of football, and he will do it the best way that suits the players that he's got. And that's really key. So you've got a manager who understands Bournemouth as a club, Bournemouth as an area, but he understands the players and their limitations and what he can achieve with them and what he can't achieve with them. And that's what makes them exceptionally difficult. So if it was me and I'm Ten Hag, I'm looking at it. I know Rashford's a doubt for tomorrow, but I'm looking at the best way we can exploit a resilient team. So you've got to get your sledgehammer down, basically, and knock the wall down. You have to do it, and you've got to attack them through the widths and through the middle. And we've got to be strong, quick, aggressive, and not allow them to settle. It's their last home game tomorrow. They're going to want to go out with a bang. I don't agree with this, on the beach kind of nonsense. As soon as you cross that white line, you've got to want to win that game of football, and we have to. So I think for me, he's got to have his FA Cup final team in his mind today, right now, and then start pushing with that 11, that group that he wants, to see if we can stop City winning the treble, because that's where we're at with it. So, so Jonathan, coming to you then, mate. What's your thoughts about tomorrow, and what's your fears and hopes about the game.
Yeah, just to touch on Julio's question there, I would definitely be going full strength until we get that. Well, hopefully get that final Champions League spot. I don't think we can be worrying about the FA Cup final too much. We have got to get that top four. Not only because it's the Scousers on our tail and the psychological impact that would have if they overcame us at this point of the season, but the financial implications this summer if we don't get top four football is going to be absolutely devastating to the next phase of this rebuild. So we have got to go all out in the next few games, go as strong as possible. Hopefully Rashford is some way fit enough that he can contribute tomorrow. But like you said, Stu, we've got to go as strong as possible. We've got to show now that we have in fact turned a corner psychologically under Ten Hag. I think we kind of saw that in the middle third of the season. Since the last international break, it's been very hit and miss. We've seen a lot of comparisons to United last season under Ranić, where there's been some very lifeless performances, and we have seen some very impressive performances as well. But the next week or so is going to tell if this group of players has indeed turned the corner under Ten Hag, or if there's still just a lot of guys there that are just basically wolves in sheep's clothing. Because you know, when the going gets tough, these sort of players have got to show up now. These are players that have got to believe that they can win major trophies, and that starts off by getting top four football. So, in terms of Bournemouth, like that, games like tomorrow are why Bournemouth want to be in the Premier League. It's why they're fighting for their lives to stay in the Premier League. United haven't been winning leagues of late, but they're still one of the biggest names that come to town. It'll be a sellout for them. Like you said, Stu, it's their last home game of the season. They'll want nothing more than to take points off United tomorrow, do the Scousers a favour and make the headlines. So they are going to come out fighting. It's up to United now to impose their game. We are the better team on paper. Everybody knows that. But it's up to us to impose our game, prove that quality, and show that we deserve to be in the Champions League next season. Because if we can't beat teams like Bournemouth, with all due respect, then do we really deserve to be in the Champions League?
No, I tend to agree with you. Look, I think the Bournemouth win tomorrow takes us to where we need to be. I know we effectively need another 3 points at Chelsea and Fulham, but I think it takes us where we need to be. I think it gives Liverpool, that's it. It's done and dusted. If we lose tomorrow, then Liverpool effectively could overtake us this weekend, and then who knows where we're going to be. Newcastle's performance last night, I couldn't work out whether Brighton were poor or whether Newcastle were scintillating. I was struggling with it because Brighton didn't appear to show anything that they showed against us a few weeks ago when we were playing them, obviously in the FA Cup semi-final and the away leg when they beat us. They didn't show any of that grit, any of that determination. I expect Bournemouth to be rigid. I mean, they'll match up, just looking at their stats now, they match up quite similar to us from what I can see. And I'm looking at the squad and I'm struggling, apart from Solanke, to kind of, and Lerma potentially, to pick up anyone of interest at their starting 11. And that's the beauty of football. That's the beauty of the way that some of these clubs approach the way that they want to play and they approach every game in the Premier League. And I had a conversation 2 years ago, really, and mainly in the summer, about the Frankie de Jong debacle that we were going through. And I posed a question to most of our fan base, and that question was, who was crying out for Frankie de Jong prior to us being linked with him? And of course, the answer was nobody. But of course, when we're linked with him and we appear to be going in all guns blazing for him, everybody wants this so-called player. Some of the best teams are the teams that just put a group of players together who've got a want and will, determination, attitude and aptitude, and are willing to learn together as a unit. And I think that's what Gary O'Neill's brought to Bournemouth. I think that's what Potter was trying to do with Brighton. And I can't remember the new, is it Sebi? Is it Severy? Whoever the Brighton guy is now. He's taken them on. Just Sebi, that's him. He's taken them on an extra step. Erik Ten Hag was doing that for us. He at one stage had got that grit and that determination and this real will to win. But in my humble opinion, he hasn't read the Premier League just right yet. And so this is why we find ourselves in this issue with suspensions and injuries that aren't the very, with rested players, stronger limbs, stronger mentality, you can avoid. And so I think going into tomorrow's game, the lads are going to push everything aside now, forget what's gone on. And as you both have said, forget what's around the corner, concentrate on that game, get the win, however we do it, scrape a win or beat them 5-0, because it's going to be one of those. It's not going to be an in-between. We're either going to scrape a 1-0 or we're going to beat them 3 or 4, maybe even 5. And then forget that game and then just move on. And we have to take everything as a game at a time now. So I don't know if I'm worried. I don't think I am. I think we've got enough in our locker to beat them. But I think Jonathan's point is correct. If we want to sit at the top table again, we've got to, show people that we deserve to be at the top table. And right now, I think we'd all agree we're not showing anyone we deserve anything, And this is the problem, isn't it, with football? So, Julio, so what would you? All right, just say hypothetically, in lines up with our normal starting 11 that we would consider. How would you want to see us play against Brighton? And not purely from a tactical point of view, but through your own eyes, if you're on that pitch, what would your expectations be of how you would want us to play?
I asked
that question because people always come at me, tactically, what do we do here? Tactically, what we do here? And I try and explain that tactically, by the way, whatever you learn in on the training ground and what they're talking to you pre-match changes completely during the game. It's all about evolution.
Yeah, I think there's been moments this season where, because of what's gone on in the season regarding injuries and lack of player availability and all sorts, there's been times this season where we've almost resorted, I've noticed a couple of times we've resorted back to our old ways under Solskjaer, almost a little bit on the back foot and then catch them on the counter a bit, which is obviously, as well as I do, no matter what level of football you are, sometimes you'll have all the possession, sometimes you'll play a bit on the back foot. So my idea would be to have probably the strongest lineup we can, but given that Rashford's obviously not in, he's a doubt to start at least for tomorrow because
he's ill, isn't he? Yeah, he's been ill most of the week.
So I see a good possibility that he will be on the bench. And the problem we've had is that comment there. We've done this season practically without a striker. If you think about it, we had Ronaldo come in who's not performed to Cristiano Ronaldo standards in this system. We've seen Valvekos come in, as much as I love what he does off the ball, because the guy can run, but he's not that kind of lethal 25-goal-a-season striker. And then you give Anthony Martial the chance to be United's number 9, and he spent half the season on the treatment table. And the problem is we put a lot of star man reliance on about 5 players. And we've seen one of them get suspended quite often. And then we've seen the other 2 be ruled out for the rest of the season. Well, one's come back now in Varane. I had my reservations about him playing last week. I don't want him to rush back because as much as we love the guy, he's made of glass, so we need to be careful. So giving him match fitness is what we need to do for the derby, but we also need to tread carefully. I think for our front 3, because Rashford's ill, we're probably going to see a very fluid front 3 of, I want to say Garnacho to play on the left wing with Martial and Anthony. But if Sancho's available, I think we see a scenario where Sancho probably starts. That's just because Garnacho has also just come back, and I think that he's a great player to bring off the bench. I think we'll see Shaw go back to his normal left-back position, and then we'll see a partnership of Lindelof and Varane. And then because Bournemouth can be dangerous on the wings, I think that we'll see Wan-Bissaka start a right-back, and we'll most likely see Big Dave in goal.
Yeah, look, you're absolutely right about the way that Ten Hag sets up. I don't agree with it. He likes the old possession concession way of playing football, so he'll allow the opposition to have more of the ball, dominate the ball, with the intent for us to kind of break it down through Casemiro mainly. and then utilise Eriksen, Bruno, etc. In our transition. Against Bournemouth, that'll work okay because I don't think they've got the players that can hurt us. It's one of these games where if we didn't have the FA Cup final on the horizon, it's a Maguire type game. You'd stick Harry Maguire up against Solanke all day long.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer, and you would rest Varane. I called for Varane not to play at the weekends. I didn't think it was the right move to bring him back in, but I'm not a professional football manager, but and Ten Hag did. But the way that he likes to concede possession and allow our game to naturally flow is okay when it works, and it's not so good when we're in this stop-start part in the season, and that's where we are at the minute. So with that in mind then, Jonathan, if you were to pick an alternative midfield three, instead of take the regulars out and pick a midfield three, who would you pick and why would you pick them, and what do you think they could offer differently?
Well, we haven't got much choices, really, do we, in terms of injury and actual squad depth? So, I mean, if you're taking out the usual three, you're kind of back to the McFred days, aren't you? And that solid midfield base and that 6 and 8 pivot that just kind of moves up and down the field in a flat line. So, I think that's what we're back to. That's what we're back to if we drop the regular trio of Casemiro, Eriksen, and Fernandes. There's not much creativity in there, but in saying that, I still think there will be enough in that midfield and those around them to still get a win against Bournemouth. It's not been disrespectful to Bournemouth. It's just, I really feel like as a team like Man United, we should be just going into tomorrow with confidence. I think it's more the situation and what's at stake that's making it more nerve-wracking. I think if this was a game that we were playing maybe 8 or 9 games into the season and there wasn't as much at stake, we'd be looking at this game tomorrow with a lot more confidence. I think tomorrow is just a case of, like Julio mentioned, that horrific away form that we have all season. And then just what's at stake. We have to win tomorrow because, like that, the Scousers are playing at the same time as us, 3 o'clock kickoff against Villa at home. You'd think as Villa are playing well, but you'd like to think that Liverpool are going to get 3 points at home.
Yeah, they're going to win that. Yeah.
So, even though we have a game in hand against Chelsea, I think it's next Thursday. If we lose,
our Thursday game. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we drop points tomorrow in any way, shape, or form, and Liverpool win, they jump above us. We have a game in hand, but psychologically, that's a huge, huge thing for this group of players. Having been at 1 point, 14 points clear of Liverpool, to find themselves maybe a point or two behind them at this stage of the season, would be, I don't know, psychologically detrimental to these players because they've proven that they're psychologically weak when the going gets tough at times. Do you know what I mean? So these
absolutely, yeah.
These are the corners that we've got to turn. Like, I think there's a lot of players there that Ten Hag is going to shift out because of their psychological weaknesses. We saw it in Seville a few weeks ago. We saw it against West Ham. We saw it against Brighton. These players are weak. So to think that we'd lose tomorrow and Liverpool move above us, I actually don't think there'll be any coming back from that. As bad as Chelsea are, I could still see them picking up a point. Yeah, they'd still pick a point. I'd still fancy them to pick a point up against us next Thursday. It's actually a really nerve-wracking game, to be honest with you. As bad as they've been under Frank Lampard, they're liable to come to Old Trafford and nick 3 points or nick a point or something like that. So
they got City, haven't they? Sunday they're away to City on Sunday, 4 o'clock or 4:30, aren't they? So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens with that. Helly's hiya, Helly. She's made a point about McTominay's back. Would we start him? It's quite interesting, really, because I think Eriksen will absolutely control the midfield tomorrow, and I think his creativity and his guile will be ideal alongside Casemiro, alongside Bruno. But here's throwing something completely out of the blue. And look, if you say drop Bruno or rest Bruno, then everybody explodes in the fan base, don't they? But we've got, in my opinion, a player that we're not utilising anywhere near enough, and that is our good old Uruguayan mate, Palestri. I think it'd be an absolute dynamite 10 for us. I really do. He would offer us this low centre of gravity, excellent dribbling. He's very, very good with the ball at his feet. can cross a football, has got vision, has got a little bit of pace. He's aggressive, he's strong. He won't play him, by the way. But again, if we're playing devil's advocate here, guys, do you see a place for Palestri in the starting lineup tomorrow over Garnacho, or is it always going to be Garnacho and then kind of Palestri coming in off the bench? I'll go with you on that one, Julio.
One thing I will say regarding Palestri, and I think I've said it whilst being on a show with you before, Stu, is that even though our recruitment over the last 10 years has not been that great, I don't know what your opinions are on our recruitment. We've somehow ended up in the same summer, we somehow ended up signing two Bernardo Silva type players in Ahmad and Palestri, and I think they both, Ahmad is obviously the standout, especially from his loan at Sunderland this season, which I think he needed. Regardless of whether you want to say he's a championship player or not, regardless if you want to misconstrue his transfer fee and forget that add-ons are involved in that, so he's not a £40 million player. He has been excellent this season, and I think that Palestri, the way he's come into the team in some games, I think that natural progression into the team has been managed, but I think it's gone to the point now where I would have thought he'd get more minutes, even if it's just off the bench. And I think that I think the one issue we've seen the drop off when Bruno is not playing.
We have, yes.
But I think that there should have been some games where Palestri could play in the 10. He could easily play on the wing, whether it's from the start or coming on as a substitute. I think that we need to see him in the next week, two weeks, because I do worry that because of, like I said, that star man kind of reliance on the likes of Rashford and Bruno Fernandes this season, I do worry that because they're both the kind of players that even if they've got an injury, they'll still try and play through that, which you've got to love the commitment for. Like last season when everyone said, oh, we should sell Rashford or this, I was of the opinion of he's played with almost like a broken back or shoulder or whatever for about a year and a half, 2 years now. He definitely gets a pass for me. But I think that realistically, we're not going to see Palestri start. If we do, then fantastic. But I think that there's no question that he deserves more minutes. And depending on how the players on the wings play and depending on how the others are feeling, will probably be testament to whether we see him or not. But Ten Hag seems to be putting his faith in other players more, like Jadon Sancho, for example. So I don't know. I personally, if I was Ten Hag, I'd be giving him more minutes, especially over the next week.
Yeah, definitely. What about yourself, Jonathan?
Yeah, Palestri has baffled me for a long time because he plays in a position where we're not exactly stocked in quality. I mean, Anthony on the right wing has been very up and down this season, which you would expect in his first season. A young player changing country, he hasn't had a full pre-season under his belt, that sort of thing. But anytime Palestri has been called upon, he's done really, really well. So you're kind of looking, and look, I'm not in any position to doubt Ten Hag. He sees these guys in training every day of the week. So he's obviously just not doing something different that Ten Hag is looking for in training on a consistent basis to not warrant getting more minutes, because anytime we have seen him from a fan point of view, he really does excite. He gets you up off your seat. He's got a low center of gravity. He's that right-footed right winger, which we don't have in the squad. We bought Jadon Sancho in as that player, but he's proven that he's a much better player on the left, cutting in on his right foot, or even as a number 10. So I would have thought in such a congested season that there would have been more place and more minutes for what is a Uruguay international. Like, he went to the World Cup with Uruguay. He's a hard-working player. He's technically very good, very quick. He offers something different to any other attacking player in the squad. So it is slightly baffling that he hasn't gotten more minutes in a rotation capacity, even coming off the bench for half an hour. The starts don't really surprise me, but coming off the bench for the last half an hour in games or so, that has surprised me. I don't think the only way I think we will see him in the next week is if we do the job tomorrow and on Thursday against Chelsea. I think he will definitely get a start then against Fulham. He certainly deserves it, in my opinion. But other than that, I don't think we're going to see him get any minutes, unfortunately, over the next 2 weeks closing out the season.
Yeah, just on Ahmed quickly, for my money, he goes out on loan again. next season. Premier League club, Brighton, Bournemouth, Southampton, Wolves will be ideal for him. He needs to learn his trade now. He's learned his trade in the Championship. He needs to learn his trade in the Premier League. I know there's a lot of people are saying, look, let's get him back in. Let's watch him destroy Premier League defenders next year. It's a different kind of fish. So that's it for me. One thing I like about Pellistri, and this is why I'd play him over Sancho, he's quicker over 5 yards. Sancho, if I was Sancho in the summer, I'm working on my 5 to 10 yard pace burst. So as soon as I get the ball, bang, you've got to be explosive out the blocks. Pellestri's quite explosive out the blocks. He hasn't got super top speed, but it's enough to get you out the box. That's where Anthony is winning most of his duels at the moment. He's very explosive on that first few yards. That gives him maybe a yard or 2 yards ahead of the defender before the defender, if he's quicker, because Anthony's not quick, has time to catch up. But Anthony's got to learn to use his body weight more. And so Sancho. So if you notice with our wingers, that we are attacking the fullbacks, okay, but we're not using our body strength. We're not leaning in, crikey. I was like, when I was 5 years old, I was taught the art of leaning into a player and stuff of that nature. And Anthony and Sancho have got to get better at that. Pellestri's very good at it. Pellestri's very good. And so is Garnacho slightly, he's getting better at leaning in. But Pellistri in particular knows how to body swerve, but defend at the same time, defend the ball at his feet, which makes him more of a difficult prospect than the trickery of Anthony and the trickery of Sancho. So I'm a bit baffled as to why Pellestri's not getting more minutes. I get the Garnacho over Pellistri scenario. Garnacho's, is he coming in with 5 goals or something already this season, something along those lines? I get all of that. Pellestri's not really a goal scorer, but he's more of a creator. And that's why, playing devil's advocate, I would give Pellistri a run at 10, because I just think he's got that in him. Let's go backwards, my end of the pitch, because I'm too old now to go forward. So let's go backwards, my end of the pitch. For all the rights and the wrongs of Varane, I was quite not critical of the signing of Varane. I was cautious about what to expect in season 1, and he was culpable for at least 7 goals. That in my opinion, he's obviously been better this season. He's forged a great relationship with Martinez. But I want to go back to, and I think it's important that we concentrate on this now. I want to go back to Ten Hag's reluctance to play Lindelof and to play Maguire more, because he was desperate to stick to this than Martinez, Varane. And I'm going to start with you on this one, Jonathan. So I'm going to put you on the spot, pal. Do you think we are now suffering because Lindelof, although he's playing well, is coming in cold, same as Maguire, although Maguire's performed very, very well when he's in the team, they're still cold. Do you think we're now suffering the effects? And do you think the Varane-Lindelof partnership is good enough to quell City, or does it need to be Varane and Shaw?
We probably are suffering a touch, because no matter how well Lindelof has played over the last few weeks since he's come back in consistently into the team, he had very little first team action for the first 2/3 of the season, really.
Yeah.
Similar from Maguire. So you're kind of, as I touched on earlier on, you're not just playing any run-of-the-mill games now. Every game has some sort of outcome. Every game means something at this. You're in the business end of the season now, as Fergie used to call it, squeaky bum time. So every game becomes a cup final in its own sense. So I suppose in that way they are a little bit cold. In terms of whether or not Varane and Lindelof will be good enough to stop City, it's a toss of a coin, really. They could both play 10 out of 10 in that cup fight, and Haaland might not get a touch of the ball. City could have an off day. I think Luke Shaw has done very well there. I think he might be a better choice in the cup final to play against Haaland and the pace that he offers in behind. So it'll be interesting to see what way Ten Hag goes with that. But then if he does go with that Shaw-Varane partnership in the FA Cup final, then you're left with Malacia at left back, who is still very kind of young and learning his trade, and he's going to be up against someone like Bernardo Silva on the right hand side then. So, it's why he's on the big bucks. He's got to work all these things out. I don't think he'll be too preoccupied with that just yet. As I said, I think his full focus will be on the next week or so and just getting that required 6 points and getting us Champions League football, hopefully. And I think Varane and Lindelof will be good enough to do that for us over the next week.
Yeah, I'm going to bring you in a second, Leo, on that one as well, mate. Look, Jonathan, I agree with you on that, mate. I'm a centre-half myself, so I know the importance of trying to stay fit. And, Martinez was unlucky with his injury. And he's kept himself fit, for, at least 3/4 of the season. He's a massive loss to us. What I've noticed, and I'll bring you in this on, Julio, I've noticed the yardage of space has grown again between the centre-halves and De Gea. De Gea's kind of reverted back to his goal line as being his safe zone. Whereas at the beginning of the season, when Martinez and Varane were playing, you had Dalot and Shaw. It was quite a tight unit. Although I would always advocate that Wan-Bissaka should have been given the chance earlier. But anyway, he's playing great football now, so that's an irrelevance. But I just wondered whether Julio, do you notice that the yardage had grown, so players are able to kind of get the better of Maguire and Lindelof for pace when we're not seeing Varane and when we're not seeing Martinez in there? Or have you noticed that yardage closing and that we're a lot tighter?
Yeah, in fact, I was actually going to that was actually going to be my point about the goalkeeper, because it's shown in recent times that the way Ten Hag wants to play, there needs to be an element of structure and organisation. For example, De Gea has been okay this season because he's had Varane and Lisandro Martinez in front of him, but we've noticed a lot in the past, and I do wonder whether, in fact, I will put a question to you, gents, in a moment about the goalkeeper situation, because it's something I did want to bring up. And what it is that it's almost like Maguire's been almost a victim. It's almost like, sometimes you look at two players together, you think those two can't play together. It's almost like sometimes that Maguire can't play with De Gea and De Gea can't play with Maguire. And
Correct.
I think that the change in defence, I think when it's the same with Casemiro. We've seen the difference what it's like without Lisandro Martinez and Varane behind him.
Correct.
And I think I think that goes through the spine of the team.
Correct.
The question I did want to ask is, because Lindelof has done well. There's no two ways about it. He's done well when called upon. I think he'd be a great third or fourth choice to have at the club, provided we bring in another centre half. It depends who we get in for cover and what the profile will be, whether it's young or a bit older but still prime. I think just quickly on the Derby Cup final, I do agree. We played a back four, I believe, of Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Shaw and Malacia when we beat them at Old Trafford.
Yeah, we did.
So I think that's the back four we'll see, because I think that whilst Lindelof has done well, I think Shaw's a good height, but I think he offers a bit more physicality. And when he's been back there, his reading of the game and his concentration has been incredible, which for years, it's one of his flaws in certain occasions has been his concentration. But the question I did want to ask is, when Dean Henderson was playing that last 10 games 2 years ago, did we see a slightly higher line, and did we see obviously Dean Henderson's not one to stay on his touchline as much. You see him come out for crosses, you see him come out of his goal to chase the ball down. But is there an element that playing Maguire with a competent ball playing, a more competent, I'm not saying Dean Henderson's the best at it, but with a more competent, confident ball playing goalkeeper behind him, is there an element that, because De Gea isn't those things, which I think some of the fan base is confusing, that just because Henderson isn't De Gea doesn't make him the best option we have. Is there an element that it almost works well as a partnership, a goalkeeper and a defensive partnership, almost?
as a centre half, your main parts of communication are your deep holding midfielder and your goalkeeper. Okay, and two things you don't want as a centre half, and you don't want to get into a foot race with a centre forward. If he's quicker than you, you don't want to get into a foot race. You want two things. You want to understand how your centre forward is going to play the ball. So Haaland, for example, be an absolute nightmare because he can take it tight and you can mark him tight and he can go to the left or to the right. And if you're not flat behind him, which enables you to go left or right, if you're leaning slightly to the left and he flips right, you haven't got a hope in hell of getting anywhere near him. You're going to have to drag him back, or you're going to have to try and use your arm to, but he's too strong for that anyway. If you try and go for a header with him, and he kind of like stops, and so what I mean by stop, he'll sometimes stop and then you'll come in towards him, and he's quite a big lad, so he'll stop you from progressing the header and things of that nature. What our centre halves aren't doing, and I include Varane in this, they're not understanding the types of players and the types of forwards that we're against. And so when you've got somebody like Maguire playing with De Gea, and I take your point, Julio, I don't think Maguire and De Gea can play together anymore. Maguire's always looking to see where De Gea is and how far the distance between him and De Gea. So he's not fully concentrating on what he should be doing, and that is defending the situation. And you'll notice this when we see the corners. We play a semi-zonal marking, and I don't like zonal marking, semi-zonal marking at all. But Maguire's looking left and he's looking right, depending on which ways the corner's coming in, because he needs to know where De Gea is. Now, goalkeepers I've always played with, I'm looking to see if I'm going to get my head knocked off by the goalkeeper, right? Not that he's 6 yards or 7 yards off me. I'm waiting for him to come. He should be the goalkeeper should almost be shoulder barging your centre half. Look, I'm going to knock you out the way to claim the football. De Gea doesn't do that. He's so static on his line. And that's why if the ball drops between De Gea and this has happened on numerous occasions this season, between De Gea and the centre half, all you got to do is stick a leg out. And that could be anyone stick a leg out and it could go anywhere. And we've conceded variety of goals. So you're right in what you say. And I've been, look, Julio, I've been going about this for years. People are banging on about Maguire. And I just made a point that it isn't always Maguire. It's all about the difference. It's all about the yardage and the spacing behind. And teams now know that De Gea is timid. He doesn't want to come out and clear the football. And if there's a foot race and I'm in with Maguire, I'm rubbing my hands together because I'm going to be quicker than Maguire. But am I going to beat him in a one-on-one header? Absolutely no chance, because Maguire's one of the best in the league at heading the ball. Somebody will give me stats where, Lindelof headed out as many as him. But when it comes to the crunch, real last-minute ditch header, he's excellent. He's better than Varane at it. But Varane's better at, he's got a bit more speed. Maguire progresses the ball well, but if he loses it, there's F all behind him. And there's no even De Gea. So that's my opinion on it. As a centre-half, I'm always looking to see exactly where my goalkeeper is. I'm trying to keep the same distance between the CDM and the goalkeeper so that if I do get turned in behind, the goalkeeper should be on the penalty spot at least if we've pushed up. So he's in the position to see what's happening and mop it up. And that's why Alisson is so good. And that's why other goalkeepers are so good. And that's a big issue for us.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair enough. I agree with what you said. The reason I ask is because I remember, I think it was the Spurs game in lockdown. Away from home, we won 3-1. There were points where the ball was beyond Maguire and you worry, oh no, they're going to get in behind here. But Dean Henderson was there to capitalize on certain situations. Yeah. I'm not advocating saying Dean Henderson's the one we should be going for. He is the future. I'm not preaching any of that. No. But you can see that there's me been wondering recently that if we get a good ball playing goalkeeper, could we see an improvement even in all our defenders? Because we've seen I think there's a trust issue, but I think the trust issue in certain defenders has not just been down to them. It's not their fault. I remember the Sevilla game. We know how that went down. We saw miscommunication, and we saw one point where Sevilla were almost in behind again. And
Yeah.
I think you might recall this, both of you, where they were trying to get in behind. Maguire was trying to get there. Then De Gea suddenly comes out and they mess it up between them. And Maguire goes to him, gives him like a bit of that to say, "Come on, communicate with me," which is something goalkeepers should be doing. I think personally, I think there's an element of both. What you're saying is right, that a defender should be focusing on their thing, but if a goalkeeper's going to come out, he's got to at least communicate. And De Gea, it becomes even more problem that De Gea doesn't do that often, especially with when Varane and Martinez aren't in front of him. So it becomes an even bigger issue, the fact that, hang on a minute, where's he going? He doesn't normally do this, and he's not even told me he's going to do this. It catches everyone by surprise.
It does.
I think Maguire, there were games this season where against the likes of Forest and Everton, he played. I think he did okay when called upon, apart from a shaky first 20 or so minutes in the Forest game.
Yeah, he's
He
done
did okay.
Yeah.
Ignoring what other members of this fan base say about him, there have been games when he's done okay. And I think that the Wolves game, I think, might have been a good game for him to play instead of Varane. I don't think Wolves troubled us too much. So
they didn't, and you're going to have this. I mean, I can't see Solanke troubling us at all tomorrow. I could be wrong. He could have a worldie of a day. But one of the things, when you look at what Costa did, Costa wanted to fight the centre halves. That's what he does. When you're playing against Diego Costa, it's great, because all I'd do is I'd just be pushing him in the back, or grabbing his shirt. I'll be doing everything I can to get him annoyed, because it's dead easy. It's just like a light switch. Costa is. Solanke's a different kettle of fish. He's not really aggressive. I don't think he's overly skillful, and I don't think he'll cause us too much trouble. But I could be wrong. You could have an absolute worldie of a game tomorrow. So be interesting to see what he does. We've got about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to have to wrap it up. So let's. We'll just go through your teams. Julio, give me your team and your result, first goal scorer. And then Jonathan will pass over to you to close us out, old friend.
My team. Are we going realistically what we're going to see, or what we want to see?
Well, give me two teams. Give me a realistic team and a team you would like to see.
So I'll give you the team I'd like to see first. I think that out of the 3 games we have left in the league, Bournemouth are going to give us the least trouble. That's not saying they won't do anything, but we know Chelsea are that bad, they could do a job on us. That's the problem with Frank Lampard and Chelsea. Yeah. And then as for Fulham, we saw what they were like in the Cup, and who knows what would have happened if it wasn't for their capitulation in that 2 or so minutes. But for tomorrow, the team I'd want to see, we'd have De Gea in goal. Because unfortunately, I don't see Butland getting rotated in unless we have to. I think the team I'd like to see would be Wan-Bissaka and Shaw at each of the fullbacks. The defensive partnership is weird. Probably Maguire and Lindelof, but I'd put Maguire in there because I think it'll be good to. I think it's a game for him. I don't think it'll be troubled too much. As for his partner, it could be Lindelof, could be literally anyone. I'd want to see the fluid midfield of Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno Fernandes, and probably a fluid front 3 of Garnacho, Martial, and Antony. The team I think we'll see will be everything is the same, just what's happening in defence with the partnership. I think I'm undecided as to who will see partnering each other in defence, but I think there's a good chance we could see either Lindelof and Varane, or Shaw and Varane, and Malacia or Shaw at fullback, depending on which.
And match prediction, score result?
It's difficult because at the moment it seems like we can't score goals. Even though we got 2 last week, it was we got the job done. That's it. On a different day, could it still be 0-0? So I'm going to go with a 1-0 win.
And who's your scorer?
Anthony Martial.
Oh, interesting. Jonathan, same for you, pal.
In terms of what I think we'll see and what I'd like to see, I think the only variations for myself will be in the front three. So I think De Gea being goal. Obviously, I don't want to be any change there. I think it'll be Dalot at right back because I think we're going to be going a bit more attacking. I think there's no point in playing for draws at this point. We need to win tomorrow. We've covered that. We have to get the 3 points. So I think it'll be Dalot, Varane, Lindelof, and Shaw at left back as well for that attacking quality. I think we'll see the three musketeers in the middle of the park: Casemiro, Bruno, and Eriksen. In terms of what we'll see up top, I think he will go with Anthony. I think he'll go with Sancho on the left. I think he may go with Weghorst up front tomorrow for the game. In terms of what I'd like to see and the type of game it's going to be, I would love to see Pellistri start on the right because I think he'd be ideal for a game like that in a tight pitch where the crowd is on top of you. I think someone that could hug the touchline, as my old manager used to say, get chalk on the boots, you know what I mean? Just hug that touchline, keep the game as wide as possible. I'd like to see Anthony Martial start up top, and I would love to see Garnacho start on the left because we saw last week what he offers us. I know that was off the bench against the tiring Wolves team, but you could just see the quality that we've missed from him in the last 6 weeks. And I think someone like him could be the difference between us getting and not getting Champions League football over the next week. So hopefully I'm right in that regard. In terms of score prediction, I think we'll see a similar game to the Forest game where we won 2-0, but I think it will be relatively comfortable. I think we will overcome Bournemouth tomorrow. And in terms of first goal scorer, I'm going to go Casemiro.
Excellent. So my score prediction is 1-0. I'm with Julio. I think if we get 2, it'll be a miracle. If we get 2. But team, I think I think you're absolutely right. I think it's going to be De Gea. I'm going to be slightly different. I'm going to go Wan-Bissaka right back. And I think it'll be Shaw left back. I think it's going to be Lindelof and Varane, Casemiro, Eriksen, and Bruno. And I think it's going to be Sancho. I think Weghorst as well. Actually, I think they'll run Weghorst and Anthony. Team I'd like to see is Butland between the posts. I don't know if he's injured or not, but I'd like to see him between the posts. I'd like to see Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Shaw, and Dalot as the back four. The midfield 3 I'd like to see. And then up top, I'm really struggling, really. I can't quite square Martial, so it'd have to be Weghorst again, Anthony and Pellistri. I'd like to see Pellistri start. But I'd like what I'd like to do, though, with that front 3 is I'd like it to be as fluid as possible. So I don't want them playing on certain areas. I want them circulating. So I'd like to see Pellistri through the middle at some point, Weghorst out wide. People say Weghorst can't play out wide. He can actually. He's got a touch on him. But I'd like to see them interchange because when you're static and you don't interchange, it's dead easy for a centre half because I'll just pick him up. It's dead easy. When they interchange, you're like, fuck, who's picking up Pellistri or who's picking up? And we don't do enough of that, in my humble opinion. But I think we'll win 1-0, and I think Weghorst he's going to pop one in. He's going to stick 2 fingers up to the haters. He's going to pop one in. Guys, we've done virtually an hour. So Julio and Jonathan, thank you very much. We've kind of muddled through this show, guys. It was a bit of a last minute thing for me, so I do apologise.
Stu, just one final thing I'd like to ask. Phil Jones, the Phil Jones news.
Yes.
My personal opinion on just a quick opinion. I want to ask for each of you. My thing on Phil Jones is he looked like a very good prodigy when he first came in. Unfortunately, mismanagement of the club and horrible injuries, and he's not been able to kick on, unfortunately. And, there was a bit of source behind Ferguson saying he could be our best ever player. Yeah. Because I remember the big games, there'll be games he'd play right back or centre back or even in midfield under Ferguson. And even when Moyes would set up like that against Arsenal, for example, or other teams, So it's real. There's a reason why he's outlasted some players like Smalling, who have gone on to different things. Even though Phil Jones has a crazy injury record, he's been one of those defenders who's actually quite competent on the ball and been able to. He's stuck around for as long as he did for some time because he's had good spells under each manager. The problem is, obviously, he's been screwed over with injuries and his career's not kicked on as he'd like. So it's sad to see that kind of career happen to him. I wouldn't wish that kind of career on anyone.
Yeah.
But I think it is obviously the right move for everybody, given what's happened the last few years and how little he's played.
It is. He's mismanaged himself, though, as well, unfortunately, because as much as players are injury prone, there's loads of stuff you can do to keep yourself fit. There really is.
Yeah, of course.
And he's unfortunately mismanaged himself. But is it a sad day? I think it is. I thought his open letter to the fans was quite heartwarming and heartfelt. I think he deserves I know he turned down a testimonial. I don't think he should, because I think people would have turned out for him. Fans would have turned out for him, and players would have turned out for him. I hope he finds a club, and I hope he has a good full season for wherever he goes. But we obviously here at the Weekly Armchair wish him the best luck. So, well said, Julio. Just before we close, guys, mental health, please check on everybody that you love, everybody that you know. Happens to everybody, all ages. Young kids are suffering from it through social media abuse, things of that nature. So from here, everyone at the Weekly Armchair, please check in, make sure everybody's okay, and try and do something for somebody if you can. Donate to your local food bank. Do what you need to do to make somebody's life just that little bit easier, because we all need it. We all need help. Some people are afraid to ask. We're not afraid to ask on their behalf. So please, if you can, do that. And just a bit of a shameless plug. I got a charity match tomorrow. I'm not doing a Just Giving page or anything like that, but the Zimmer frames will be out because we're playing England over 50s semi-pro. So that should be quite an interesting charity match. So if I don't appear next week, it's because I ran out of oxygen, and the paramedics went on standby to rescue me. So anyway, guys, let's hope for a win tomorrow. We need that. Mark is back tomorrow afternoon. I don't know who he's got guest-wise, but he's back tomorrow afternoon, so please tune in, and let's hope Man United do what we need and we beat Bournemouth. Thank you ever so much, guys. Julio, Jonathan, been an absolute pleasure. You've been great, so really appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys. All the very best.